All right, let's have a quick look at something that one of our users just noted. This is an image of a transparent bubble as a PNG image file. And when we load that, it looks a bit weird, as we see right here. It also looks weird in some other programs, and that is, for instance, in Earphone View. And the reason really is that there is an alpha channel that contains the transparency for this bubble, but there's also some shades of gray along the edges. And if you load it, well, it's going to be up to the application to decide what to do with that transparency information. Just because you have it in the file does not necessarily mean that it's going to be used the same way as where it came from. In the case of Dogwaffle, we don't have a alpha channel for each layer. So even the base layer, when you load it in, it takes the RGB, and the alpha is there, but you only can see the presence of it if you enable the alpha on. Then you can see that there is some marching ants around here, and that marching ants is not showing where it's either fully transparent or opaque. It's showing sort of a transition where the 50% transition is. So this is not the way you want to use this in Dogwaffle. Same thing with Earphone View. It's really just showing the colors. It may have been a 32-bit image initially, and you can see that under image information right here. It shows that it's 300 dpi, 60 million colors, 32-bit per pixel original colors, but currently in the viewer it's ignoring those that extra alpha channel, so it's only 24-bit colors, and the only thing it can show are the colors, the RGB value of the pixels. Now, when you look at it in an email or in some other viewers, it may decide to put the background color to white, and then you'll see it more like this. Right, so this is possible too if you set the background color to white. But of course, the moment you load the image, it replaces it with a new image, and it starts from and it loads the RGB values from this. But we can do this here. We can create a new image and have it load like that. So the question really is, what do you want to do with this inside of Dogwaffle, like inside of Howler? Or PD Artist? Do you want to make it sort of a transparent displacement map, for instance? And so one thing you could do is you could put that in the swap image. Right now I'm looking at the main image, but I did actually put this into the swap image, and so I'm switching back and forth here between the main image and the swap image. And then I could put something else here into something like a filter. Let's render some grid or something like that. There you go. And now I'd like to simply use that transparent bubble to displace and make a deformation of this grid. And that's quite easily done. If, for instance, you go to the filter, displace by swap, you can use the regular filter here, the display filter, and you can see how the alpha value, or rather the grayscale value, the pixels in the swap image are doing their magic to displace it here. Now, there's also other things you'd like to do, and what I have here is actually stored the image as a custom brush. And when you enable the preview here, you can see it's in my brush. You can manage it from here also if you need a slightly smaller version, but it's really there to just stamp it down. And if that's ultimately what you wanted to do, which is like to paint with it, you can certainly do that. You can certainly have it a little bit smaller even, and then perhaps use the settings, pin this down here, to add some random position, was it random size even, although for random size, because this is a fairly large image, it's a custom brush, you need to make sure you allow the transforms. That does take some extra compute cycles. You can also enable that up here, right? Transform that, and so now you have random size. You may have size based on the speed scale. You could random position is a good one also. And then so now as you're painting, you see a whole bunch of bubbles of different sizes and a little bit off the track, off the path that you're painting. So random position to the max, random size to the max, maybe also the step distance, the step here, so you have to go a little bit farther before you see the next one. Anyway, so there's lots of different ways to use that. Let me go undo this a little bit. There you go. So you can see you can paint these bubbles all over. And you can of course take this into animations as well. Now if you want to see it this way with this plaid pattern showing that it's transparency, you can do that too, but you have to load it through the brush. So in the brush menu you can open directly that particular PNG image file, and then I stored it, brush, store image, and oh, excuse me, not store image, so basically store and manage. There you go. Not store as an image, but store and manage. So here it is. Now you have that that brush that you can paint with, and you know, stamp it down in single clicks. Always be aware though, if you have some random positioning, it's not going to go exactly where you think your cursor is. So be aware of that. Anyway, so that's some of the many things you can do with that image still, but you cannot see it in this mode over another image through a layer all too easily. I mean, I suppose you could do something like the following here. Let's start in the first layer. That's our default one right now here. We have just one default layer. We could probably go here and say, let's render that to, let's go, where's my Europa there? Let's go with Europa. Maybe not that dark. Let's make it a little bit light. Undo that a little bit. And so that's in one image. Let's clear the current selection. And then open another image and put this one in there. Right? So this one here, if it's the same dimension, we can paste it or scale to fit, and it's going to be on top, but it's not a opaque. If there's fully opaque parts here, it's not going to be an opaque layer. We don't do opaque layers. We don't have that extra alpha channel for each pixel on each layer. So the only thing you do have here is sort of a second layer that is multiplicative or whatever. There's lots of different modes here. The default mode that we call default is actually the multiply mode. Yep, that is a slight disadvantage if you want to do opaque layers. No can do right now in Howler. Perhaps in the future. It's a fairly monumental thing to do, though, if we want to add that, because there are so many filters and so many things that use it. There are many layer modes beyond regular opaque mode, and that's really why we have these layers, is to do other things with it, not necessarily making something opaque and hide the pixels behind it, but rather modify them and combine them in some ways. But anyway, that layer here with this image, for instance, if you took this image here, this layer, and just erased it to white, something like that, then I suppose you could enable this and you can see it. Right now you can see it kind of this way, but I don't think that that's what you're looking for. Maybe you want to do something with this image. So let me do this again. I'm going to go here and disable this one, or perhaps just delete it altogether. I'm going to remove this layer. So this one here we have in the main image nothing at all. In the swap image, as you can see here in the title, the swap image has this bubble. And what I'll do, in fact, I'll add one or two more. This one we don't need anymore. Let's go back to the original here at full size, or reset that. So I have this one here. I'm going to add a few more, something like this here. Oh, I'm still doing the random size here. Let me go reset that as well. So what is it? There is still some other. Oh, there it is. Now it is predictable as to where it's going to go, right? And so I'm going to put these here, and then I'm going to do that displacement again. Because that's a really fascinating effect you can get there. So here's my main image. I'm going to disable the preview now and simply put and minimize these guys. And then simply put some sort of an image there, perhaps a seamless one. So let's first put that in there, render plasma noise, for instance, something like that. Perhaps one of those with some color. There you go. Make it seamless. And if you're not sure, or if you missed making that seamless, you can also do this. You can go to the image menu and make seamless at that point. There you go. So this one's a seamless image. Let's go store that. You never know, you might need this one again. Let's go store this one too, by the way, to swap. Let's go store that one. Store image. There you go. Maybe we want this one to be seamless. Let's go that as well. Make seamless. There you go. Store it. It's just a habit you should take. Store things that are important you may want to get back to. So let's go back to talking about going back to. Let's go back to the main image here and now apply the displacement map, right? So here it is. Displace by swap, and you can see that these bubbles are not only transparent, but they are actually simply displacing the image from the swap or through the swap, and so that keeps them present in the sense of a visual distortion that they create, right? And there's a lot of different types of displacement you can apply. You can there's about 5, I think, displace, cloaking, displace, a slightly different effect. Let's see what else we have. Displays by swap, pool displays. And so you can see there's definitely a lot of different styles and effects to explore. But in any of these, you're not actually seeing the bubble anymore. You're just seeing its presence or its effect it has in terms of a displacement. Let's see one more. Undo that. Let's go here. Displays by swap. There's two more here. The jitter, or three more. The jitter, not my favorite, but it has its purpose. This one here adds a little bit of a jitter. Barely visible in this particular case. So let's see what else we have. Two more. We have the color twirl displays. That one I think is pretty interesting too. Yep. And then there is one more, and I don't remember if I've used that one a lot. Let's see, normal displays. I guess using some sort of a normal map interpretation. So anyway, the effects here are going to be different from one to another, but somewhat similar in some ways. And perhaps this one here is the first one you'd want to try, particularly if your image is actually seamless, because what you'll see, it's being displaced kind of diagonally to the upper left, and if it is not seamless, it will definitely reveal the edge at the bottom, and the one that's at the top is wrapping around to the bottom, and you'll see that sudden transition revealing where the edge was. So if you make it seamless, that thing goes away, and it's a little bit easier to work with that. So how would you use that? Well, one thing you could do is actually have a single image, and now of course I wish I still had that original. Let me go and recreate that. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to select this brush. Let's see, preview. There it is. That's the small one. That's the big one. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to say that I want some text to be seen through this bubble. Right. So what I'm doing here, I need to have some text. And so I'm going to go and disable the preview and go to the text tool. And of course, it would be nice if I knew exactly where that bubble was going to be showing up here, right? So perhaps I can enable that blending mode here. This is the layer mixing that actually shows both together, right? The swap image and the main image are being shown together. You can right-click here to actually say in what way they are being merged, or not merged, but shown together, blended together. So you could do a screen mode, which is a little bit brighter. The default one, again, is the default is the same as the multiply mode. But what that allows you to do is, in many cases, to just see where that other image is, so you can manage to put your text right in there. Right, so I'm going to go here, PD Howler. Just as a reminder, this is 9.6 right now, and this is not something you can only do in that version. This is something you can do in earlier versions too. And I'm going to go select the font here in my text tool to increase the size, perhaps something like this size. Let's see what else. The font, I might need to get a different font. There you go. Let's go like this. Let's grab this corner, and perhaps I want to actually have some of the text outside and some of the text inside. Right, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to center it, but I'm going to need to make it bigger. So actually, one easy way to do that is to just make it a brush. Right, make this a brush, and so now if I look at the preview, it's in my brush image here, and I can make this brush image bigger. So let's go to resample from the brush menu and make it about this big. Apply that. You see a little bit of white edges there from the anti-aliasing. We might want to clamp that down. So perhaps under brush transparency, we can key grow or key shrink. I think if we do this, we shrink it, yep, the white goes away. It's only 1 pixel in this case, or maybe 2. There's a tiny little bit over the E, the letter W has a little bit too. Let's do it one more time. Brush, transparency, key, shrink. So that should keep it kind of tight. Okay, so I'm going to go put this black right here, click it down, and now I can turn off the layer mixing, so I'm seeing just the image I have here, right? And turn off my preview of the brush. And at that point, I know I still have this image here in the swap image, and here in the main image. Now I want to use the displace by swap, and I'm going to use the regular displace, and you can see it's essentially displacing the entire image a little bit like that. We might want to compensate for how much shifting we get here by actually putting that text a little bit lower, or you can use a different displacement. Some of them don't do quite that same effect as we have by the default displays. Let's try to pull displays. Oh yeah, they still do something similar too though. So I mean that's going to be inevitable in terms of where that text actually is going to show. You need to compensate for that a little bit and perhaps shift it, right? So let's go and let's say we're going to go from here. We're going to use the regular displays. So let's go shift it a little bit to the side. Shift, just grab the hand and bring it down about this much. It's not a precise science at that. It's really art. So let's go and displace by swap again, and this time we may end up landing it just about where we need it to see that PD right here distorted and Howler is fine in the middle, so to speak. But you know, you can adjust that a little bit more if you want to. All right, well, hopefully this helps you work with those transparent bubbles through the brush. Really think through the brush. That's where a lot of that extra power comes through. But you can also load it into the regular image. Just be prepared to see what actually the colors are. Just because it's transparent, right? Just because a pixel is set as transparent doesn't mean it doesn't also have a color. It always has an RGB value. It may be black. If it's all 0, it may be something different. And sometimes it looks really ugly, but because it's flagged as transparent, in some programs you don't see the ugliness of it. It's hiding it because it's made transparent. But nonetheless, the pixel has its color, regardless of the transparency of it. All right, I hope that makes sense, and thanks for watching, and thanks for using Project Dogwaffle.